In this video, I'll demonstrate how to install and configure SQL Server 2005 Express Edition reporting services, and within minutes I'll create and deploy a couple of reports that you and others can view directly from their web browsers. Now, reporting services provides the tools necessary to get great results quickly, complete with charts and graphs, with drill down data, with export to Excel and PDF formats, and more. Let's just take a second and look at some examples of the kinds of reports that you can actually build. Here we're using the Report Manager application to navigate through the reports, and the first report we take a look at here is the Adventure Work Sales, where we can drill down by quarter, by year, by product category and subcategory to see the sales for each of the quarters for a given product and subcategory of product. If we go back, we can take a look at sales order detail. So for a specific sales order number, which you can change, you can see kind of a receipt for a single purchaser. Here's another report that would get the sales for a given employee. So if we select an employee from the list and click View Report, we can see some nice charts about how well that employee is performing. As you can see from these examples, with reporting services, you have a lot of formatting options, as well as interactivity by parameterizing your queries, and a lot more. Not to mention the cool web-based user interface that nicely manages the reports that you've created. Also, you can set permissions on the reports that you create to only allow those with the proper privileges to view certain reports on your server. Now, admittedly, the reports that we just looked at are a bit more advanced, but using a report wizard, you can create simple reports within minutes. Reporting Services also has a rich API for defining more complex reports. Reports can be built using a special version of Visual Studio called SQL Server Business Intelligence Development Studio. So those of you who are already developing applications with the other Express Edition tools or with Visual Studio, you can leverage your existing IDE skills here. So let's start with a quick overview of the major pieces of reporting services, and then we'll begin with the installation and configuration demonstration. Now, while there are many working parts internal to reporting services, I'm just going to focus on the components that you're going to see and interact with the most as a developer of the reports. First of all, you'll create .rdl files, which stands for Report Definition Language Files, which is just an XML syntax that contains the definition of your reports. And you'll create these RDL files using SQL Server Business Intelligence Development Studio. It allows you to define the connection to the database, the data that you'll retrieve into the reports, and the way that the data will be displayed on the report. So once you define the report, you'll deploy it to a report server which manages the reports, and it's responsible for things like maintaining the metadata about the reports, like connection information, the underlying data source, cached versions of the report, and so on. The report server kind of stays behind the scenes and manages the report and information in the reports. It keeps track of information in a couple of SQL Server databases that you'll define during the configuration steps that we'll go through in just a few moments here. Then there's the Report Manager, and this is what we were just looking at a moment ago. It's that user-friendly web-based user interface that you and your users will be able to interact with. It requests reports and other information from the report server and then displays the results to the end user. Now again, this is a very basic breakdown of the responsibilities for reporting services. The main message is that you have a very sleek, well thought out workflow for creating and managing reports for your data. Okay, so that's all the overview that we're going to need. Let's go ahead and get started. So first I'm going to demonstrate the steps required to set up reporting services, and the key is downloading and installing the correct packages from the Express Edition website. So let's do this. Let's go to Internet Explorer and navigate to msdn.microsoft.com/express, and that'll transfer us to the Express Edition homepage. On the left-hand side, we'll hover over SQL Server Express, and in the pull-down menu, we'll go to the download page. And about midway through this page, we'll see some links. On the right-hand side, we'll want to download SQL Server 2005 Express Edition with Advanced Services, and also download the Express Edition Toolkit. Those are fairly large files. Take a little bit. After that, we'll want to go to the SQL Server 2005 sample page. This will give us the data that we can use for the examples that we'll go through in this and the next video. So first you'll want to download the AdventureWorks db.msi. This will give us all the data, and then the SQL Server samples.msi will give us some example reports that we'll also look through, and those will use the AdventureWorks database. Now, I've already taken the liberty of downloading these files for brevity's sake, and so let's start the installation process by installing SQL Server 2005 Express Edition with Advanced Services. And I'm going to walk you through the installation and configuration of reporting services and discuss some of the options that you have whenever you're setting up your development and deployment environment. And so for the most part, I'm going to choose the default options, except for those that involve reporting services. Now, if you have any questions about the other options, please refer to SQL Server's help or other resources on MSDN. I'm also going to pause the video recording because the installation process can take a little while. One of the first things that the installation wizard will want to do is look at your system and make sure that there's no problems. You may have some error messages if you do, or warnings, and if you do, you'll have a little message hyperlink. Click on that. It'll give you some insight as to what the problem is and what the impact of that problem is if you don't resolve it. However, as you can see here, I'm successful, so I'm going to move on, hit the next button. And we're going to deselect Hide Advanced Configuration Options. We are going to want to manually set up our reporting services where it goes on the file system, plus where it's installed within Internet Information Services. From here, we're going to want to make sure to install reporting services and the report manager. Also, we're going to select to install the client components, connectivity components, and Management Studio Express. And for the next 5 screens, I'm just going to select the defaults for instance name, service account, authentication mode, collation settings, and user instances. It's on this next screen, report server installation options, that we'll want to make a small change. By default, it will install the default configuration. If you want to see what that entails, click the Details button, and it will show you where it will be installed within IIS for both the report server and the report manager. Also, it will let you know what the default SSL settings are. However, we want to have more control over the configuration of the server. So I'm going to select the second option, install but do not configure the server, and we'll show you how to configure it then after we finish the installation procedure. I'm going to continue on with some of these options. And now that it's started installing, this could take 3, 4, 5 minutes, so I'm going to pause the recording right now. After the successful installation of advanced services, we're going to want to configure reporting services by selecting the Reporting Services Configuration utility. After connecting to our instance of SQL Server Express, the Configure Report Server utility will show us which items that we need to configure before we can start using report services. So we'll need to specify the virtual directory for report server and report manager.